All right, Stephen A., stand by for us. I want to ask you about Donald Trump touting an endorsement from a Black Lives Matter activist. The Black Lives Matter organization tonight is distancing itself from one of its activists who is endorsing Donald Trump. Now, the former president says that he is very honored to have the backing of Mark Fisher, who claims to be an activist in the Rhode Island chapter. But Black Lives Matter also says that Fisher is not affiliated with any current chapter. It's interesting that Trump is touting anything from Black Lives Matter since he has said this in the past.
BLM and Antifa burn down cities, kill people, and nothing happens to them.
We have Antifa and BLM who hate our country and burn down our cities. Many of those who are spreading violence in our cities are supporters of an organization called Black Lives Matter. The stated goal of BLM organization people is to achieve the destruction of the nuclear family. BLM, many people were killed. These people, I'm not trying to justify anything, but you have two standards of justice in this country.
And Stephen A. Smith is back with me now. So, Stephen, it is pretty amazing that Trump once knocked Black Lives Matter and now is honored by one of their activists' endorsement. This, of course, though, comes as Biden seems to be, at least in the polls are polls, but in the polls, losing some support among Black voters. What's your take about what's going on here?
Well, first of all, take a moment to give Trump a little credit. I mean, he's clearly lying. We know this, but it's what he does. And so what happens is that when he said what he said, if you didn't pay attention, you really did think it was Black Lives Matter that supported Trump. If you listen to him, as opposed to seeing that it was one person who was an advocate on behalf of the organization some time ago, and it's still that way to some degree. The reality of the situation is that you had one individual speak up on behalf of him, and you would have thought that Trump was the second coming of Lyndon B. Johnson. I mean, Trump alluded to that. He said, hey, he took that as a means to say, I'm supported by Black Lives Matter. I'm supported by the by the Black community. Oh, by the way, no president has done more for Black Americans than me. And he brought up, Lincoln with a question mark, forgetting that it was Lyndon B. Johnson that signed civil rights legislation and voting rights legislation into law in the 60s. It was Barack Obama with the Affordable Care Act. Now, so you could feel whatever way that you want to feel, but one could easily make the argument that there were a few others that did more for the African-American community than Donald Trump. As a graduate of an HBCU, Winston-Salem State, I will give him credit for making sure to funnel some money to HBCUs. He does deserve credit for that. I won't deny that. But there's a lot of other things that obviously I would challenge him on. And certainly that would be one of that assertion is wrong. It's a lie. But nevertheless, it's very, very predictable. And he knew that most people wouldn't know better. They would assume it was Black Lives Matter instead of one individual, not necessarily associated with their national arm.